Hi everyone. Thanks for joining me. I hope everyone's having a wonderful Wednesday today. Today we're going to be talking about an important topic, stress, and we're going to be talking about creating a stress-less life. So notice I didn't say creating a stress-free life because I actually don't think it's possible, but I do think that whatever situation that you're in, that there's always something that could be done to decrease the stress that you're feeling and even decrease the stress, just generally speaking, that you experience or that you're exposed to in your life. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So real quick, if you're not familiar with me, my name is Jen Costanza. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach. I help women who are struggling with burnout, stress, of course, and the effects of that chronic stress and burnout, especially weight gain and exhaustion. And we work to help you get your life back and take your health back, obviously. So, talking about today's topic, creating a stress-less life. So the last, or yesterday, I guess I would say, I put a number of questions, poll questions in my stories to see how many of you were experiencing stress. And if it was having any kind of impact on your life. And generally speaking, there was a really strong response that basically everyone is having some kind of stress. Some of you are feeling a lot more stressed and overwhelmed than others, but everyone, it seems like right now, is feeling stress in their lives. And many of you are at the point where you're not really sure what to do about it. So that's why I feel like this topic is so important to talk about, especially for me personally, I've always been a person that has felt like I've had a lot of stress in my life. And it's only recently in the past couple of years that I've gotten to the point where I felt like I was able to control it. And I'm actually going to give you, an outline of how I have addressed, stress in my own life. And it's also let's say I don't want to say formula, but it's the approach that I also take with my coaching clients and private coaching to help them decrease the stress in their life and decrease the impact that it's having on their health. So, some of you already know this, that I am a former sociology professor. I was in grad school for a very long time. If you have done a PhD program, you have an idea of the kind of stress that involves, really coming at you from a lot of different areas, and not just work-related stress, but all the kind of havoc that it creates in your personal life and in the ambit of the decisions that you are able to make or not able to make when it comes to your personal life and your future outside of work. So that experience being a grad student was, and afterwards, after finishing my PhD, teaching for the 4 years that I did was pretty difficult on me. I had some other personal issues going on in my life, and it kind of came to the point for me that I was just super burnt out. And it really impacted my health. And that's why I think it's so important to think about think about what you can do to try to mitigate the stress that you're feeling in your life, because some of the things that we are stressing over, they're never going to go away, right? And that's actually the big thing that I want to talk to you about, is how are we going to look at stress? In my perspective, we can look at stress in two different ways, right? On the one hand, we have stressors, the things in our life that are stressing us out. And then on the other hand, we have the actual stress that we feel as a result of those things, right? So on the one hand, stressors that you have going on in your life, some of them could be really big, right? Some of them you might not have much control over at all. And when I say really big, I mean it might be your job. And you might be in a situation where you can't leave your job, right? Or at least you can't leave your job right now. You don't really have another immediate choice in front of you. You might be somebody who is taking care of someone full time, in your home, for example. You might be a mom, a full-time mom. Those can all cause you a lot of stress, right? Those are big stressors in your life. I would argue we also have little stressors, right? We have little stressors in the form of you leave your house, you're driving down the street and somebody cuts you off. Or something that sometimes stresses me out. I'm late for something. I'm in the parking lot of wherever it is that I'm going. I'm driving around in circles in the parking lot. I'm looking for a parking spot and there's none. I remember that happening to me just a few months ago and catching myself in my mind while I was getting all upset about it. So I know that these kind of smaller things are things that can be stressors in our life and can, kind of send us on a downward spiral in our mind and even in our body too. Some other big stressors in your life that can be hard to deal with immediately, obviously, could be relationships. It could be a relationship with a romantic partner. It could be your relationship with your children. It could be a relationship with your parents or other family members. So these are all, I put this all in this kind of in this first kind of category of perspective of looking at stress as stressors, things that are big or small that we perceive as stressful, that give us stress, right? But on the other hand, there's the actual stress that we feel, the stress that we're feeling in our body, that feeling of overwhelm that you're having. And for some of us, and myself included in the past, when that stress goes on over time, it's not just a feeling of general overwhelm. It can also be a feeling of, anxiety, just kind of this constant anxiety in the back of your mind, or something that you're kind of like feeling in your chest even. It could be even for some people that are feeling constant anxiety. And this is also something that happened to me, getting, occasional panic attacks at random times. So there's the stressors, and then there's the actual stress that you feel. And while it can be difficult to control those stressors, right? I'm driving on the highway. I don't really have any control over other people's driving patterns. I only have control over my own driving, right? If I'm in a parking lot, I don't really have control over the fact that there's no parking spaces, right? I only have control over how I'm going to feel about that. If I am even at my job, I might not have a ton of control over, the tasks. And this can obviously differ depending on what kind of works scenario that you're in or what your career is. But there's going to be things that you really don't have a lot of control over, that you don't love and that stress you out. Even, and obviously the biggest thing, being in a job that you really don't enjoy and that overall you don't want to be in. But on the other hand, there's a lot of control that we can have when it comes to how we react and there's a lot of things that we can do to mitigate the impact that stress or that those stressors are going to have on our life and on our emotional well-being and on our physical health, right? So here's some basic things. Obviously, you've heard about stress management before, right? So, what are the first things that you think about when you think about the term stress management? If you're watching the replay, give me an idea, leave me a comment and let me know. When I think about stress management, some of the immediate things that come up and that you might be like seeing, in social media or on TV or in the news or whatever, might be like meditation, right? Meditation is really good for stress management. Breathing, even just, when you hit a stressful situation, stopping and breathing deeply 10 times. Other types of stress management activities that you could be engaging in could be yoga, could be Tai Chi, could be exercise in general, any kind of exercise really. And there's also, hey Paperman music, There's also stress management, or there's also ways to manage stress through nutrition. And I've talked a lot about this on here before, so I'm not going to go into it too deeply, but we can actually add to our body stress when we're eating inflammatory foods, when we're not really nourishing our body. And we can also, by eating the right foods, we can help decrease the impact that stress, even emotional stress, the impact that that's having on our health. So things that you could do are, I always talk about eating balanced meals so that your blood sugar doesn't spike too much. Eating a lot of plant-based foods, right? So a third thing that we can do to manage stress is, I kind of group this in the category of, like lifestyle shifts. And I know that's kind of wishy-washy to put it that way, but the type of shifts or the type of little slight kind of tweaks or changes in our life that we need to make in order to manage stress properly, it can differ. They can be different for different people. That's actually something that I often work on with clients, is figuring out what needs to change in their specific life in order to help them manage their stress better and feel less stressed all the time, right? So I'll give you one example, something that I find is helpful for pretty much everybody, myself included, is having some kind of a morning routine where when you wake up in the morning, you don't have to make a lot of decisions about what you're going to do next. And you have some space in the morning, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes, that is completely yours. It's nobody else's. No one is going to intrude on that time that you have to do whatever it is that you want. Maybe it's, maybe what you're doing during that space is taking a quick walk. Maybe you're stretching. Maybe you're reading a favorite book. Maybe you're journaling, whatever, doing something to, that feels fulfilling for you. So that at least at the very beginning of the day, you're starting out with a focus on you, your needs, and your wellness, and not on, oh God, I've got to get showered and brush my teeth and get everything together and go to work, right? So it's kind of like having a little bit of a calmer morning. So that's one example of a lifestyle shift. And another example I want to give, and I think it kind of, I think it's helpful for both thinking about how we're going to manage stress and how in the medium term or longer term, how you're going to deal with those bigger stressors, is setting boundaries. So, tell me or think to yourself, are you setting boundaries in your life? Do you even know what that means? Let me explain. So I'll take the example of a morning routine. So let's say that you decide that you're going to get up a little bit earlier and you're going to have some time to yourself where you're going to, take a walk or go for a run, right? For the first boundary is basically, telling yourself, or that's going to be really, this is important to me and I'm going to do what it takes to make that happen. The second part of boundary setting is actually enforcing that boundary by letting people know that you're not going to be available for that half hour. Maybe it involves, talking to, your kids or your partner, whoever it is that you live with, and letting them know, this is what my morning's going to look like. And I'm doing this for my health, and it would be really helpful if you could just give me the space to do this, right? So that's what I mean by setting a boundary. It's basically getting clear for yourself about what it is you'll accept and not accept, what kind of behavior or you're going to accept or not accept in your life, what kind of, how it is that you want, getting clear with yourself about how it is that you want others to treat you, and getting clear with yourself about what you're willing to do and not do in your life. A lot of things there, right? And like I said, sometimes those boundaries are small. I thought about this today before I got on live, I was thinking about how I was going to explain this. And I feel like, in a sense, we can think about some bees as being like a small bee. like small b boundaries rather, or lowercase boundaries. And those might be the boundaries that I just talked about when it comes to, being clear with the people that you live with, family, friends, whoever it is, about, hey, this is my space and this is my time in the morning. Please don't disturb me during this 15 minutes, right? So that I can do my activities that are going to help me de-stress. But we could also talk about big B boundaries. And that might come into play when you're thinking about what you're willing to accept in a work environment, right? What you're willing to accept in a relationship, what you're not willing to accept in a relationship or in a work environment. So those boundaries, they're harder to define for yourself sometimes, and they can be even harder to enforce, right? It's really hard because it's really hard. It can be really hard to leave a job or to even leave a relationship, obviously, because it involves a lot of kind of reorganizing of your life. So you have to be really clear on what you want. But these are the types of actions that in the, over time, building little by little over time, that are going to lead you to having a stress-less life. Maybe not a stress-free life. Like I said, I really don't believe that is possible. But, managing your stress using various strategies that work for you, not for somebody else, not for me, but for you, and also figuring out what you want in life and setting boundaries and making bigger changes over time to craft that life that you want. That is what is going to lead you to have a less stressful life, to feel more fulfilled, and to be healthier. And if you have any questions about what I'm saying, please drop them in the chat. And like I said, I don't feel like this is easy necessarily. I honestly believe that starting with managing your stress, focusing on the things that you do have control over, like you do have control over what you eat. You do have control over whether you exercise, over whether you meditate, over whether you breathe, over, all of these little things. You have control over those things, right? And, focusing on the things that you have control over and setting boundaries so that you can accomplish those things, be able to actually put those stress management strategies that are relevant to you into practice. That's going to get you on the path to the point where you're able to make decisions about these bigger stressors in your life, like work, family, relationships, etc. So last thing I want to say about this is, why are we even carrying stress is not just an annoyance. I used to think that was the case, to be honest. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you that I am living a stress-free life. But it's a practice that, it's like a constant daily practice to manage stress for me personally. And the thing is that I will say that in the past, years ago, I thought, gosh, this must be normal, right? Everyone around me, a lot of people around me seemed really, really stressed out. So I figured this has got to be the normal thing. I know now that it is maybe common, but it is not normal, and it is not good for your health, and it can lead to a lot of health problems. And I know that I talk about this all the time on here, but some of those problems, obviously, that we develop from chronic stress, stress over time could be feeling exhausted, having trouble sleeping, weight gain, especially weight gain around your belly, and a whole host of other smaller health problems, and eventually even chronic diseases. Stress is honestly at the root of just so many of the health problems that are common in our society. And I hope that after listening to this video that you at least agree with me just a little bit that there's a lot that you do have control over when it comes to the stress in your life. If you have questions, or if you are struggling a lot with your stress and you're really looking for some help trying to figure it out, I want you to know that I offer a free 30-minute discovery session, which is basically a phone call. We'll get on the phone, we'll talk about, what's going on with you. What are you feeling? What is really challenging for you when it comes to stress and other health issues going on in your life right now? And we'll figure out, what's keeping you, or what's the obstacle, what's keeping you from being able to overcome those stresses or those challenges. And we can see if my private coaching program, Thrive, might be a good fit for you, a good way for you to get out of that stress, move out of survival mode, right? So if you're interested in that, please send me a DM and we'll start a conversation. And that's it for today. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.